rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone. This is American Perspective, and I am your host, Rick Thomas. No, I didn't forget my name. And I also didn't forget that today is actually Tuesday. Now, normally I stream on Wednesdays and Saturdays, but I'm looking to expand my exposure. And so what's happening here, folks, is I am doing more of a what's called a soft launch of a weekday program. So that means Monday, Tuesday through Friday kind of scenario. And the reason being is I'm looking to expand my listener base and my exposure. So this may or may not, depending upon how things go, this may or may not work out, but I'm giving it a shot anyway. So I am going to be, and I just realized I don't have any of my lights on, but I am going to be streaming. Weekdays as well as Saturday for the time being. I won't give that up. But I'm going to be streaming for and attempting to do a 5-day-a-week format. So you'll have to excuse me. I forgot to turn on my lights. See, this is what happens when I get all discombobulated. But anyway, so there you go. That is what I am doing. That's why we are here. And that's why I'm streaming. So hopefully you guys will be able to pick it up. Now, keep in mind my intent here is that Monday, every day other than Wednesday and Saturday, I'm going to try and stick to an hour for the time being. So tonight's show will be about an hour. Tomorrow's will be my typical usual program, about an hour and a half. And then I'll go back to an hour on Thursday and Friday. Again, this is just a soft launch. I am just trying it. I'm seeing how it's going to go, trying to make sure that it can fit within my schedule, that I can actually perform the shows properly, do them justice, that kind of thing. And then, of course, we'll have to see what happens in terms of my listenership and people, who pick up on the program. Hopefully they'll do it well enough that things can expand and so on and so forth. So I already see a few of my regulars popping in over on Rumble, which is fantastic. Thank you very much. I know it's a bit odd to have seen and received the message, but I wanted to do a soft launch and not make it announce it as like a normal thing. So that's the main thing. Okay. So I'm just going to say I'm trying it out. We're going to give it about 30 days. We're going to give it a month and see what happens here. And we'll just see what goes on with the whole thing. All right. So let me go ahead and get everything started. As of course, with the other programs, we are going to go ahead and start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. So those of you who are of mind, please stand, remove your hats, and recite the pledge along with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, for those of you that may not know, because this is brand new to the show, for those of you that may not know, I actually will play audio files from my listeners who send them to me of the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you want to get your audio file in, that would be awesome. Just record yourself saying the Pledge of Allegiance in your style, whatever style that is, and I will go ahead and get that on. You can email that to me at fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. All right. And now, of course, to get the first thing out of the way, let's go ahead and pop up tonight's promo. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Go check them out today. All right. So, things are going to be a little odd, of course, mainly just because of the fact that things are a little out. But speaking of odd, did you hear Joe Biden actually pulled a very fine people moment this weekend, or, well, sometime in the last couple of days? You know, that whole thing where they accused Trump of saying, you know, there are very fine people on both sides. It happened, I believe it was in Charlottesville. And he clearly had to jump on the bandwagon because people didn't understand. And of course, the news media took it out of context in terms of what he said with regards to condemning the Nazis and white supremacists and so on and so forth. Well, Joe Biden had his very fine people moment just here recently. And of course, this, though, is an actual very fine people moment in the perspective of the fact that Joe is trying to play both sides. That's what he does, is he plays both sides. Well, let's take a look at this. This is from The Federalist. And this debate, or what he is talking about, is the October 7th scenario with the Palestinians versus the Israelis and the Jewish folks. But he was being asked specifically about the riots that are going on at Columbia University. And by riots, I mean sit-ins. Okay, so let me rephrase that before I get smacked about this. They are actually tent-ins, sit-ins, whatever. There really hasn't been any violence yet that I'm aware of. However, there have been, Columbia University actually went and canceled all of their in-person classes in order to make sure that people didn't get hurt, because apparently a couple of Jewish students, or there were some Jewish students or Jewish teachers that have already been accosted when trying to get to class. Now, again, keep in mind, the whole purpose of protesting in the Constitution has to deal with peaceably protesting, peaceful protesting, not necessarily accosting people as they are trying to get around and run around doing their thing and doing what they need to do in order to continue for their day. However, that being said, President Biden was asked about this, and his quote back to reporters with regards to the question, he says, "I condemn the anti-Semitic protests." And then a little bit later in his comment, he says, "I also condemn those who don't understand what's going on with the Palestinians." Okay, so once again, let's, back this up and make people, to make sure that everybody is clear on this. On October 6th, the Palestinians of Gaza and the Israelis and the Jews of Israel, because actually the Gaza Strip is part of Israel, they were living relatively peacefully, meaning that they weren't really accosting one another or anything else. In fact, that situation, for the most part, had been sustained since about 2006 when Israel went ahead and pulled out of the Gaza Strip completely. Now, there'd been, skirmishes and things like that. I mean, Hamas had sent over rockets and, doing their little terrorist kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is they pretty much were living in relative, let's say, détente before October 7th. Well, on the morning of October 7th, Hamas and civilians, by the way, Palestinian civilians also followed Hamas through the holes in the fence in Gaza as the Hamas terrorists ran through nearby villages known as kibbutz, nearby villages, and raped, murdered, slaughtered, decapitated, tortured, and captured innocent Jews. And they grabbed them and took them back, 200 plus number, which is now down to, I think, less than 40 at the moment that we are aware of that may still be alive. But they went ahead and they attacked and basically in cold blood. Many of us, if you have any inkling of being a part of the news media or social media, you've seen some of the horrific videos that have come out of it. And to sit there and try and equate what happened on that day in particular with the response that is going on, where Israel is doing everything that they possibly can to avoid as many civilian casualties as possible. They are after just the Hamas fighters. Okay, that's it. That's all they want to do is get rid of the terrorist group Hamas, which, by the way, for those that don't know, the Palestinians voted in shortly after Israel backed out. And still to this day, the majority of the Palestinians actually support Hamas being a governorship of the Gaza Strip. Well, Joe Biden, of course, trying to play both sides, is saying, I condemn the anti-Semitic protests, but I also condemn anyone who doesn't understand what's going on with the Palestinians. What's going on with the Palestinians is pretty clear. They are supporting a terrorist group that the terrorist group itself, it has as its charter genocidal intentions for the Jewish people, as well as Christians too, by the way. It's not just Jewish people that they're after. They're after any Westerner. And they would gladly kill any Westerner that they come across. Now, for him to go and to make this statement again, I believe he is, this is an election year. He's pandering to the Dearborn, Michigan crowd and trying to garner their vote because he believes that if he loses Michigan, he loses the election, which is probably pretty true. But the point is that he goes and he makes these statements. He can't even, keep in mind, the Democrats themselves can't even bring themselves to talk about the genocide that occurred on October 7th without also bringing up the Islamophobia as a part of the conversation, even though Islamophobia really isn't as big of a problem as anti-Semitic viewpoints. And this is the problem. We have an American president who is basically giving up our ally in Israel for what he believes is a few votes for him dealing with Palestinians. This is actually kind of disgusting. This is not in any way, shape, or form, by the way, equating to what Donald Trump said, because Donald Trump clearly pointed out when he was talking about what happened in Charlottesville, he clearly pointed out that the Nazis, the racists, any of them of any kind were to be condemned. That's specifically what he said during a press conference with regards to that. All right, so let me take a quick break for just a second. You know this great shirt that I'm wearing right now? I mean, I know some of you can't see it because you're listening on audio. You should head on over to Rumble and check it out. But I've got this fantastic patriotic shirt right here. I wear many of them throughout my shows. I get them from this place called theflagshirt.com. That's theflagshirt.com is where I get them. But you know what? I have garnered a special reward for you. If you want to get $5 off, get a $5 off coupon from the Flag Shirt, go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online and you will have a code generated for you, a coupon code that you can apply at checkout to get $5 off your order. Go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online and you can get a code that will give you $5 off your order at theflagshirt.com. Go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online to get that code, and you can use it at checkout for $5 off your order. For $5 off of your order at theflagshirt.com. Get patriotized. Go to theflagshirt.com and get your patriotic gear today. Okay. So, have you we talk about this, the whole lawfare thing that's going on with Donald Trump and all of these, suits, whether they were civil suits like the case up in New York City, whether it's now the Alvin Bragg trial that's going on right now. And we also have, of course, the whole thing with the Jack Smith trials and the classified documents case that's happening down in Florida and of course in DC as well. But this article and one other incident happened, which basically, Democrats have this problem. It's not just Democrats, because some other people do this too. But Democrats have this problem where after a while, they tend to tell you exactly what the real deal is. This is part of the reason why we're able to listen. If you really listen and read between the lines, you can actually tell not only what they're going to do, but also you can tell when they're doing it in terms of what their purposes of doing this are. Now, check this out. This is a article that popped up in PJ Media, and Letitia James was arguing, her legal team was arguing that Trump's bond, $175 million bond, needed to be annulled or nullified. And what's really interesting about it is because of the way that she talked about why it should be nullified. So when she went to the court or the appeals court to try and nullify the $175 million bond, her team raised concerns about the bond owner, which was Knight Specialty Insurance, and was questioning whether or not they could actually pay the bond if it was necessary. Now, it was kind of curious that she took this tact because of the fact that she asked for the $370 million in damages, which is not a typical ask and was much larger than most people would do it. Now, it's very weird, again, that this thing was so large, and the reason being is because of the fact that she was attempting, and this is what we're essentially garnering out of this, is that she was attempting to make sure that Trump could not pay and that by default, she would be able to take over the properties. Well, the only reason why you want to do that, realistically, is because of the fact that you are trying to bankrupt an individual, first of all, but also you're trying to punish them. Now, keep in mind, Democrats have a very, very specific playbook when it comes to things like this. What they want to do is they want to make the punishment the crime. In other words, the process, the whole process and all of the things that go along with it, they want to make that whole process the punishment. They don't necessarily care whether he's going to pay this or not. They just want the whole process to be the punishment. And this is why she is doing what she's doing with regards to that. Now, the funny thing about her in particular is because, and there's video all over the internet of her, she campaigned, her whole campaign in becoming the attorney general was essentially to make sure that she got Trump. There's video everywhere of what she said and what she did and, who she blamed. And she just constantly talks about going after Trump. She never once really talked about crime in a general sense. She just said that she wants to get Trump. And so in this particular case, she is trying to, or she tried, thankfully it failed, but she tried to make it to where Trump would be required to pay all of that, the entire bond, which of course would make it to where she would be able to snatch up his properties and try to bankrupt him. So that's the purpose, is not only the absurd judgment, which, let's face it, this particular case, in a nutshell, is a very outstanding case because there is no victim. There is nobody that was slighted. The banks got all their money back. And what he did by, quote unquote, overvaluing his properties is nothing that anybody else has not done. That's part of the reason why you have bank appraisers who come around and do an appraisal on the property, is because you want to come to an agreement of what a fair and reasonable value might be. Well, when you take this attitude and everything that she has done to try and derail this, and you add that to far left Democrat Pramila Jayapal. I am so embarrassed that she comes from my state, really. But she was on a MSNBC's The Weekend Show, and they were discussing the current New York City case, the NDA agreement case. I am not going to call it the other terminology that everybody else is using. But she stated on the show that this is the purpose. The purpose is to keep Trump from getting elected again. Here, let's take a listen to what she said.
No, that's right. And somehow that it finds its way into the public, which would be terrible. And, I go back to the responsibility of Congress here, because had the Senate actually gone through with the impeachment of Donald Trump, we would not be in this situation. And I remember Mitch McConnell giving a speech that sounded like he was going to vote for convicting, but he didn't. And he made a lot of arguments that made no sense about why he couldn't, given what he was laying out, given what had been laid out in the impeachment trial. And it is the thing that worries me, upsets me the most about the situation that we are in, is we have to have accountability work. If we don't have accountability work, if there isn't accountability for what Donald Trump did on many levels on January 6th, in this trial, in every possible way, then that will send a message to Americans about what's okay in this country. No, that's right.
Okay, so let's evaluate that for just a second here. So what she is basically saying is that if the Senate had convicted Trump initially under the impeachment trials, which we knew were a bunch of crap, and that was why why he got acquitted or exonerated or whatever adjective you want to use there. She's saying that if that hadn't happened, and also if you read between the lines, if he were not running for president right now, all of this would be going away. So she's essentially admitting, without necessarily spelling it out, although anybody with a brain can understand this, is that the purpose of all these trials is part of the plan to try and keep Donald Trump from attaining the White House once again. And this is exactly the purpose, folks. They are going after Trump with the idea that they want him to be not the president. In fact, many of these leftist lunatics are all saying all over the socials that they can't wait until the day that Donald Trump's name is no longer being spoken within the mainstream media or anybody else, anyplace else. And that's what they are looking for. Now, what's funny though, or well, not funny, but what's different, I guess, let's say, about this is that Rasmussen just did a poll, this article in Newsmax. Rasmussen just did a poll that 51% of the people polled, they believe that Donald Trump's New York City trial is not going to be fair. Well, that doesn't surprise you any if you look at all of the jurors that got excused, and understanding, of course, that New York City itself is not Trump friendly for whatever reason. There's no way that he's going to get a fair trial. Now, honestly, I'm kind of surprised that his lawyers didn't try for a change of venue to get it outside of New York City. But that being said, maybe they couldn't. I don't know. There could have been a legal reason for it. But according to the Rasmussen poll, only 4 in 10 U.S. voters say former President Donald Trump is likely to get a fair trial in New York City. A total of 51% of voters say it's not likely Trump can get a fair trial in the current case. And among the majority of voters, 31% say a fair trial is not at all likely. Now, opening statements started yesterday, and they had their first witness today, which I haven't dissected or dug into the testimony, but my understanding from what I'm hearing is that it was less than stellar. It was less than impactful. Now, I don't know if anybody caught this, but Michael Avenatti, who was Stormy Daniels' attorney, has publicly stated that he believes that this is a railroad of Trump, and he actually has been in conversations with the Trump attorneys in order to testify on behalf of Trump. So this trial is going to be kind of interesting, to say the least. But again, we're looking at a trial and an accusation that is not necessarily on the up and up, because of the fact that, it's a novel case. It's one that the Federal Elections Commission, the FEC, had already looked at and dismissed and didn't even bother pursuing. And yet here we have Alvin Bragg. Some people call him Twinkies. But Alvin Bragg has come out and tried to make this into a felony situation with this payment. Totally glossing over, of course, the entire Clinton affair where she paid for a dossier, the Steele dossier, which was fake to create the Russian collusion hoax. Let's just, ignore all of that. But hey, we'll go after Trump for making a non-disclosure agreement payment to somebody that the FEC said wasn't even a campaign violation. I just don't understand these people at all. But apparently this again, the purpose is to try and interfere with the election using lawfare. Lawfare. Okay. So I don't know if anybody's paying attention to the classified documents trial in Florida, but there was something large that came out about it just recently. And sorry, I'm expecting a break to get popped up here, but let me go ahead and do that break before I do get into that. All right. Folks, let me tell you about True Grit Roots Network. True Grit Roots Network, TGRN Blues, has all these wonderful, fantastic shows for all you blues lovers that are 100% 24/7, 365 playing on the TGRN Blues channel. Go and check us out at tgrn.net, but let me go ahead and tell you about one of my favorite programs that is on that channel. Join Mighty Mouth Blues for 2 hours of authentic roots rockin' music every Tuesday, 8 to 10 p.m. Central, with an encore presentation on Saturdays from 8 to 10 p.m. Central, exclusively on TGRN Blues. Multi-award winner blues radio host Jonathan Oogie Richards and his co-host Amber Burr Hill bring their high-energy radio show featuring today's hitmakers while paying tribute to the iconic blues men and women who paved the way for today's blues artists. More information can be found at tgrn.net. TGRN Blues, part of the True Grit Roots Network out of Austin, Texas. And once again, you can check us out at tgrn.net. You can download our app and play the music. Find us in the Live 365 catalog of digital radio stations, as well as on the Odyssey app, AUDACY. You can find TGRN Blues, the True Grit Roots Network. All right, so most of the classified documents case has kind of not been in the news, and the reason being is because Eileen Cannon has really been doing what I would consider a phenomenal job in the fact that she is trying to keep this thing actually legally even as best as she can. And so the trial has been moving slowly, of course. But one of the things that happened here recently was the fact that she unsealed the FBI files in the case. And by unsealing, she basically unredacted it and made it available for the public. But here's what was found by some people that have dug into those documents. Unredacted documents reveal, and this article is in the National Pulse, unredacted documents reveal that Biden, Garland, Jack Smith all colluded in the Trump documents case. Now, to be honest, it's a little bit of a stretch. However, to say collusion, that of course it's a headline. People want to grab, they want to grab your attention for this. But the fact of the matter is that the case started, the idea for the case started, and the push for the case started the minute that Biden was sworn in and Trump was no longer president. That's what was being shown. And the fact that Biden, Garland, and even Jack Smith all have been talking about this from the second that Trump got out of office. And this is even on more of a accelerated fast track, by the way, than what could be considered for a PRA violation. By that, I mean Presidential Records Act violation. Well, here on X, Julie Kelly, who's been following this thing and doing really a phenomenal job of reporting on this, but she posted on X one of the unredacted pages. And on the left side of this, for those of you who may be able to see it here on Rumble, come on over to rumble.com and get yourself an account. You can watch the video there. But if you take a look at what Jack Smith wanted to conceal, which was essentially hiding all of these redacted lines and everything else, versus the unredacted document, and I'll make this a little bit larger here, but here's the unredacted document, and as you can see, there was early indications of NARA. NARA is the organization that starts working with the White House Office of Record Management, and is responsible for going and getting these documents, or at least attempting to get these documents back if they really are part of the whole situation where they're supposed to be part of the National Archive. But almost as soon as Trump left office, this is actually in the documents that have been redacted. Almost as soon as President Trump left office, NARA started to work with the White House Office of Records Management on exaggerated claims related to records handling under the PRA. On May 5th of 2021, less than 5 months after the end of President Trump's term, NARA General Counsel Gary Stern sent an internal email attaching a draft letter to President Trump's PRA representatives. Stern noted that he had several conversations with the White House Office of Records Management, shortened to WHORM, and that the WHORM had raised some of these concerns directly with David Ferrero, which is NARA's archivist. Stern's draft conceded that things were very chaotic, as they always are, in the course of a one-term transition, and he acknowledged that the transfer of Trump electronic records was still ongoing and won't be complete for several more months. So the transfer of the documents from Trump's term hadn't even gone to Trump yet. And yet here, the Biden administration, the Biden White House Office of Records Management, was trying to get these documents back. They weren't even giving him the opportunity to actually even collect them in the first place. Now, it also continues here that a NARA employee explained to the FBI that it is not uncommon that PRA material collection extends past the close of any presidential administration, and sometimes well after the close of any given presidential administration. However, in early June of 2021, during ongoing good faith efforts, now this is key here, by President Trump's PRA representatives to address the issues raised by the National Archives, Ferrero declared that he was out of patience. So he was we're talking, this is June, where things normally would take a long time to build up over time for the transfers to happen and everything else. They are admitting that they wanted those documents back immediately, as fast as they could get them. So this is, NARA had a bias with this, and this is part of the case, or part of the defense's case is look, you didn't even give us a chance. Now, what also is in this document too, by the way, is a complete, I won't say a complete, but is a rough timeline of the events that led up to the Mar-a-Lago raid. And as a part of that, they specifically brought, rather than allowing the Florida office of the FBI to go and do the documents gathering, they specifically brought a team from Washington, D.C. to go and collect the documents. They temporarily stored them at the Florida offices of the FBI and then took them all back to Washington the next day. Now, what's even more damaging for them in particular is the fact that there is collusion with the White House itself, outside of what the WHORM was doing. There's also further collusion. Take a look at this unredacted document. Again, also part of Julie Kelly's deal. The Biden administration weaponizes the PRA in late September. So we're talking June to September of 2021, without disclosing that NARA had already drafted a referral letter and contacted the DOJ. Deputy White House counsel Jonathan Su asked one of President Trump's PRA representatives to permit access notes from the Trump administration relating to records handling. Su then intervened when Stern offered to provide a copy of the notes to President Trump's PRA representatives. Could we discuss the process before anything is provided to him? They asked. Stern agreed to coordinate on this issue with the Biden administration, but informed Su that the request was atypical. Quote, normally we would have to provide the records to him per the notification review process before we could provide anything to you. So in other words, the Biden administration was trying to work around what would normally be a simple transfer of records back and forth to the National Archives. Yeah. Again, folks, the Biden administration, just like the Obama administration prior to Trump's first term, the Biden administration is trying to usurp the potential powers and potential situation with regards to President Trump. This is nothing but lawfare and trying to get Trump, again, to keep him from being part of November of 2024. And it's not going well for them, honestly. It really isn't. Another thing that's not going very well for the Biden administration is the whole idea of using a portion of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act to have put away over 300 January 6th convictions. Now, I touched on this on Saturday. I did touch on this a little bit, but now, after we've had a chance to sort of digest some of the questions that the SCOTUS justices were asking, there's something that is becoming abundantly clear. And that's showing up here in the American Spectator. This piece has a decent write-up about potentially why SCOTUS will toss the 350 January 6th convictions. For those of you that don't understand exactly what's going on here, there was a gentleman who brought this suit, and I'm trying to find his name here. Joseph Fisher was among many of those who were charged with obstruction of an official proceeding. Now, prior to being charged with obstruction of official proceedings, what they had the January 6ers on, because as you'll know, none of them were charged with any kind of insurrection or sedition for the most part. There were a couple, but none of the ones that were actually there were really a part of it. And so what ended up happening is the Department of Justice, because even the FBI told Reuters shortly after January 6th that there was no collusion, there was no coordination, there was no insurrection. And so what ended up happening is the DOJ had to find something in order to create a felony. Well, apparently they pulled out this Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which was passed in 2002 to prevent corporations from tampering with evidence to obstruct congressional inquiries or other official proceedings. Now, for 19 years prior to this, the law was used only for that purpose. And then what ended up happening is in 2021, the DOJ refined the words official proceedings to mean anything that the government does, including certification of electoral college votes. Now, this, again, just like with the E. Jean Carroll case, where they changed the law to allow her to bring the suit and then sunsetted that change so that nobody else could do it other than her, okay, the arbitrary revision became necessary because the actual crimes that the J6ers were being charged with up until this point were little more than trespassing and disorderly conduct. Now, what the specific section law that they are talking about is Section 1512 C2 of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which includes language that was distorted specifically by prosecutors to charge the roughly 350 rioters with felonies. Now, this is the key here, and I'm going to read this to you really quickly. Whoever corruptly, number one, alters, destroys, mutilates, or conceals other objects or attempts to do so with the intent to impair the object's integrity or availability in use or for use in a official proceeding, or otherwise obstructs, influences, or impedes any official proceeding or attempts to do so, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. So here's the problem, and here's the thing, is that the SCOTUS justices were focusing on the words otherwise obstructs. And I'll get to why here in just a second, but let me go ahead and tell you about this wonderful document known as the Constitution of the United States. This is a leather-bound U.S. Constitution. It has a 100-year warranty against defects in materials and workmanship. You can send it back to the manufacturer anytime in that 100 years, and they will either fix it or replace it for free. Get yours today. This is a leather-bound U.S. Constitution. Get yours today by going to constitution.americanperspective.online. Check this thing out. It has 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather. It has pages that are tear and water resistant. And look at that binding. It goes all the way through the leather and the papers inside. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online and get your copy today of this fantastic heirloom piece that you can pass down to other generations in your family. Once again, that is constitution.americanperspective.online to get yourself that fabulous leather-bound U.S. Constitution. All right, so back to the SCOTUS and the J6 case. So here's the problem. In the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, the separation between paragraph 1 and paragraph 2, which if you're watching on Rumble, you can see it's the green section in the image. The thing about it is that it's otherwise obstructs. So they're sitting here and they're talking about, okay, you have to kind of do that, the first items in relation to the second items. So in other words, you can't be doing one, but not the other. You sort of have to like be doing the first one in order to be doing the second. And that this first paragraph and second paragraph are kind of tied together. And the majority of the justices, including Chief Justice Roberts, were questioning the DOJ's use of the separation of these two clauses. So there is a general feeling by these folks, by the legal eagles that are analyzing this, there is a general feeling that this will likely not go the DOJ's way. Now, obviously, we can't predict all the time based on questions that are being asked in terms of what ways things are going to go. They could discover some sort of legal precedent or some sort of set. But I mean, again, this is a kind of a novel approach to using the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which essentially followed on the heels of the Enron scandal and was specifically designed to address the issues that occurred during the whole Enron scandal, as far as that goes. So when you go through the transcripts, they emphasize a lot with the DOJ's broad interpretation of the term otherwise. So we're going to have to see where this one goes. It looks like it might not be going the DOJ's way, for sure. Now, along with the lawfare that's been going on, and I'm kind of running out of time here. So along with the lawfare that is going on, there is another Democrat who has popped out, which doesn't really surprise me any. You know how Biden brought out Clinton and Obama for his special event thing that the $25 million fundraiser in New York City and all of that stuff. Well, apparently, the queen of the Democrats, and I'm using that term very, very loosely, came out and has mentioned and warned about disinformation that is potentially coming out by the Republican Party. They're accusing us of disinformation campaigns. So here we are again. We're back to disinformation, misinformation, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, Hillary Clinton and Mark Elias, who is the Russia hoax architect, according to this piece in the Federalist, they both warn of disinformation campaigns. They are insisting that, of course, the political opponents, which would be the Republicans, are telling lies to influence the U.S. elections. And yeah, this really is Hillary Clinton showed up on a interview with Mark Elias. I guess this is part of his, I don't know if it's his podcast or whatever, but anyway, they talked a lot about Trump. They talked about Project 2025, in which case Hillary was talking about how, Project 2025 is mentioning how they have to clean out the bureaucrats. And obviously that was a problem to her, which realistically it should be, because it was because of those Democrats bureaucrats, those Democrat bureaucrats that had caused Trump so much angst in his first term. But anyway, they had this interview and they were just talking about, rehashing again all of the Democrat talking points with regards to, election interference, misinformation, disinformation, Trump's plan in Project 2025, and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, and they, of course, talked about also that Democrats are running in or already are in key positions that are overseeing the election system, once again, in crucial swing states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, North Carolina, and Nevada. Clinton said, I think you'll get fair results. And we have to accept those results because Democrats are basically trying to call the shots. Now, she calls out again, that's not the case in Georgia, but the governor there rose to the occasion in 2020, and let's hope he does so again. So here we are, right back to the same thing over and over, over and over. Their playbook just continues on. Well, speaking about Democrat operatives, here's an article in Just the News, and this is really what she is talking about. Okay, were several bills that were election integrity bills that were being advanced in several states. But Democrat governors went ahead and vetoed these election integrity legislations that were passed by Republican-led state legislatures, despite a bunch of allegations, investigations, and convictions of election fraud occurring across the U.S. They're saying here in the piece, those convictions require proof beyond a reasonable doubt and that the crime, in fact, did occur. But Democrat governors in Arizona, North Carolina, and Wisconsin have gone and vetoed legislation that Republican-led state legislatures passed to help secure elections within their states, arguing that their concerns are unfounded or their solutions unnecessary. For example, Governor Katie Hobbs vetoed a bill that would respectively prohibit people convicted of ballot abuse from holding elected offices and prevent counting recorders from sending voter registration cards to more residents who to most residents who have out-of-state mailing addresses. I mean, that just sounds like, the thing that we should be doing. Let's see. State Representative Gillette was the bill's sponsor, said in January that the legislation was an aid in preventing voter registration fraud and helped clean out the county voter rolls, according to the Arizona Mirror. In February, a report by the Public Interest Legal Foundation found that more than 400 non-citizens had been removed from in 2 Arizona counties since 2015, but the actual number of non-citizens on the voter rolls is likely significantly higher. Now, if you recall, I have mentioned that Arizona is their state law is such that if you cannot provide citizenship proof, you don't get handed a state ballot, you get handed a federal only ballot. So the fact that it's even questionable that you're a citizen just gets passed over. It doesn't surprise me that Governor Hobbs went ahead and did this. There's also other bills in this as well. For an example, let me see if I can find it here. Tony Evers, who is in Wisconsin, vetoed 2 bills that would have enacted more restrictions for casting and collecting absentee ballots from nursing home residents. The bills were passed by the GOP-controlled state legislature after the 2020 presidential election was conducted during COVID-19 lockdowns, when voting skyrocketed among nursing home residents. The first bill, which changed procedures and requirements to allow nursing home workers to aid residents with voting, Evers said he objected to it because the workers have minimal training in election procedures. He added that the bill would effectively require all ballots, even with the most inconsequential mistakes, to be discarded unless the clerk is able to return these ballots for timely correction. So who cares if they're wrong? Just, yeah. This is just, this is basically what they're dealing with here. And a special counsel report, I don't know, you guys might remember this because I know I talked about it, but the special counsel report done by a retired state Supreme Court Justice Michael Gableman for Wisconsin had 91 nursing homes in the counties of Milwaukee, Racine, Dane, Kenosha, and Brown had voter turnout rates ranging from 95% to 100% in 2020, as compared to overall nationwide participation rates of 67% in 2020 and 60% in 2016. So in other words, they all of a sudden had like a bunch of voters that just showed up out of nowhere. And there's just, this is all in preference in preparation. That's the word I'm looking for. In preparation for 2024. Now, one last thing that came out about the elections, by the way, and this will be before I go ahead and end. But one other thing came out, this in the Daily Fetched. Apparently, there was a study that showed that Facebook by itself meddled with U.S. elections almost 40 times since 2008. The group a group called Media Research Center went ahead and did a study, and they found that Facebook censored 2024, or has found that Facebook is currently censoring 2024 political candidates, presidential candidates, including Robert Kennedy Jr., and 2022 Senate and House candidates on their platform. Social media company also removed Virginia gubernatorial candidate Amanda Chase's account, shuttered political advertising 1 week before the election in 2020, according to the MRC's analysis. The MRC also said that there was at least 3 instances where Facebook leadership publicly voiced support for free online speech, but went ahead and took a different path afterward. It's coming. Here we go again. We got to keep our eyes open for stuff like this, folks. We really, really do. We got to keep an eye open on this stuff. We really, really should. And pay more attention to this. All right, one last thing that I do want to talk about before I go, because this is really important. So you have the stuff that's happening in Columbia University, as well as I think Yale, and so on and so forth. Well, Josh Hawley pulls out a call out the National Guard and says that Biden has to send troops. He went on to X and talked about sending the National Guard to defend Jewish students. And this is, this is important. And again, when you're talking about when they did the integration of the schools and all of that kind of thing to protect the black students that were being part of the integrated schools. And then, of course, I'm also reminded of the 1964 Berkeley riots, where Ronald Reagan basically called out 2,200 National Guard troops in order to quell the riots there. If this is allowed to continue, honestly, it's going to be a bit of a problem. And just to give you an idea, it's not just the students, by the way. It's not just the students, but here, this is at New York University, NYU. Here, I'll show you the video as best I can here. These are teachers who have linked arms in order to protect the students, and keep them from being taken off campus by the police. And as you can hear in the background, they're speaking Arabic. I'm not sure whether that's the call to prayer or whatever. I don't know enough about the Arabic language or the whatever the situation is, but here they are. They created a ring around a Gaza Solidarity encampment to protect their students after the school threatened a mass arrest. Folks, look, things are going to get worse before they get better, and 2024 is going to be, in my mind, 2024 is the pivotal election of this cycle, of my lifetime, actually, to be perfectly clear on that. All right, so last thing I want to tell you is, yes, I am broadcasting on a Tuesday, okay? And everybody's kind of like, oh, wait a minute, this is Tuesday, not Wednesday. So here's the thing, okay? Once again, this is on a trial basis. I am doing a short trial for now to see about my exposure, getting my exposure and going to a Monday through Friday format for my show. So for the next month, I will be streaming every weekday night, starting tonight, and we're going to see how this goes. And if everything goes positive, then we'll make it more formalized. But my Wednesday show and my Saturday show will still be the exact same format and everything else, just like normal. So this is just something that I am experimenting with. Again, trying to advance my exposure and to get my viewership actually up. So if you're new to the program and you're new to what's going on here, please head on over to Rumble, sign up for an account. It's free. Find the American Perspective channel and follow, or, well, it's also known as subscribe. Otherwise, folks, we will see you tomorrow night on the American Perspective with Rick Thomas show. And I'll have more to talk to you about tomorrow night. Thank you very much for joining, and hopefully we'll be able to pick this back up or pick other things up tomorrow night. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.